today's session of Divorce Court. Brian Goldfarb says the problem in his marriage to Barbara was her sexy job.
She was doing adult phone conversation.
You mean a phone sex operator?
Yes. Then she started bringing her work home with her.
What do you mean by that?
Well, she'd call the chat line.
Was it the chat line on the computer or on the telephone?
It started off on the phone.
Mrs. Goldfarb, any reason why you're enjoying sex more on the computer than with your husband?
I told my wife, if she's not going to sexually satisfy me, I'm going to find somebody that will.
Shortly before we would have sex or shortly after, he'd tell me I was useless, I was worthless, I was no good, I used the C word, used the B word.
The woman is psycho.
And when she refused to quit because the money was too good, he said goodbye.
She wanted to live like Donald Trump. That's the problem. If I could have got the credit to go buy a plane, she'd go buy one.
Now Brian Goldfarb and Barbara Goldfarb battle it out for the last time in today's session of Divorce Court.
All rise. Court is now in session. Maybelline Ephraim presiding. You may be seated.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is the matter of Barbara Goldfarb versus Brian Goldfarb. Mr. Goldfarb, I'm advised that your wife's job is the major cause of the discord in this relationship?
Yeah, she was doing adult phone conversation, and at first we needed the money.
As a job?
Yes.
You mean a phone sex operator?
Yes, ma'am. And at first we needed the money. She was doing it out of the house, and so I didn't mind it. But
Didn't
she
mind it
started
when
bringing.
he couldn't
When people dial those 99 whatever sex numbers, they get your wife?
Yes.
And she's sitting at your house doing that?
Well, no. At first she was not doing it in my house. At first she was doing it in an office, and then she started. Bringing her work home with her.
What do you mean by that?
Well, she'd call the chat line. She'd have guys' phone numbers that call the lines, and.
Was it the chat line on the computer or on the telephone?
It started off on the phone.
It was all affiliated with the 900 number, and it was only fine when I was doing it out of the house, when he could sit there and listen, and I could pass him the phone.
And then he'd do it as well?
No, he would just listen and laugh.
Oh, he'd listen to what was going on at the other end in terms of their reaction to what you were saying or doing.
Right.
But the bottom line is that she would do it, and when my son was younger, it was fine. I didn't mind. As my son got older.
Why was it okay when your son was younger?
Because when he was younger, he really didn't know what was going on.
I haven't done that for quite a few years.
When he got older, my son started catching on. I said she has to stop. And when she started enjoying doing that more than having sex with her own husband, that's when things came to a halt.
Now, you're going to tell me that you got upset because your son got older. I don't believe that's why you got upset because your son got older.
I never did it with my son in the house,
Your son wasn't sitting there while she was on the phone working, was he?
No.
He knew what was going on.
No, he didn't, Your Honor.
He overheard it. I went to marriage counseling hoping she'd make a choice of her own to quit.
What do you mean she liked having phone sex better than having sex with you?
She would rather do that than have sex with me. Our sexual life stopped for.
Well, you were enjoying it at first, so what's the difference?
I was not really enjoying it. I had no choice but to listen to it if she was going to do it. I was hoping she'd make a change of her own through marriage counseling and stop. Otherwise, we fight about it.
How'd you get this job?
Out of the newspaper. His pet names for the last 8.5 years for me, has been the C word and the B word.
There's guys sending her money all the time off the computer. In fact, I told her a year ago, we were living at my brother's house, okay? I said to her, if you want this marriage to continue, you got to stop speaking to these guys. She wanted to live like Donald Trump. That's the problem.
Oh,
and I can never have the income like him.
So she was spending too much.
That's
living above your means.
Right.
So what do you mean like Donald Trump? What'd she want?
She wanted to live his lifestyle. If I could have got the credit to go buy a plane, she'd go buy one.
So what was she buying?
Cars, 2 brand new cars in a year. In the same year, buying a house.
Yeah.
Okay. And like an idiot, I signed for it with her.
Mrs. Goldfarb, what about that?
We could afford it.
Were you living above your means?
He was working until he had an affair with his boss. My 8-year-old had come home. He was.
Well, you
6.5, and he
You don't
came
want to have
home,
sex with
and
me.
he said, well,
you
why
don't
would
want to have
I?
sex with me.
Why would
you want
I?
to talk
When
to
you're
strange
calling
men
me all
on the
these
Mr.
phone.
names.
Goldfarb, Mr. Goldfarb, now she struck a chord, and you want to yell out loud. You were working until he started having sex with his boss.
He was working at a newspaper and doing on the sales end of it, and he would take my son when there was no school or on the weekends. And my son said to me, I don't want to go to work with Daddy because of that woman. And I said, what woman? And he said, Deborah, because they kiss in the parking lot and they touch each other everywhere. Well, I about had a fit.
No, this is not the man that's kissing in the parking lot and touching another woman in front of his 8-year-old child, and he tells me that he wants you to stop being a phone sex operator. Wait a minute.
Each other.
Yes, you did,
Not
Brian.
in front of him.
Now, you all did it again. When my jaws are jacking and yours are closed.
Yeah, but I didn't physically touch her.
How you kiss her without touching her?
Well, my hands weren't touching her.
Well, your lips touched her? Isn't that touching?
Your Honor, do you have kids?
Why are you asking me what I have? That's none of your business.
Because do you kiss your husband in front of your kids?
And that's none of your business.
Well, the whole world does, so why should I do
She's not your wife.
She was my girlfriend at the time. My wife didn't want to give me...
But she's married to, you're married,
But
and you're trying to teach this son of yours these great values.
I told my wife, if she's not going to sexually satisfy me, I'm going to find somebody that will.
Okay,
and she refused to do it, so I went out and found it.
All right, so you went out and found somebody.
That's what
now,
she
I'm
said
talking
to me.
Again.
You didn't let me finish.
I'm in control. You didn't let me finish. You were finished with that part of the sentence. I wanted to ask a question right then and there. And that's my prerogative. Now, if you told your wife if she didn't let you have sex, she didn't have sex with you, you'd go out and get somebody else, that's fine. That's telling your wife. Why do you have to involve your son?
My son happened to be there and saw me kiss her.
Happened to be there?
Yeah.
Didn't you take him, or did he just manage to float there through the thin air? So now that's why you're really upset with your wife, is because you found somebody else. It's not her phone sex operator.
No, I'm more upset with her because after I found somebody else and she begged me to please give it another chance, let's make it work. And I said, okay, I will. That was the last time I ever spoke to that woman, okay?
That's right.
And
Hold on a second.
I told her under one condition that she stops talking to these strange men on the phone and starts paying more attention to me. Okay, I will. Well, I will never came through. It's just more broken promises that she's been giving me and feeding me for the last 8 years.
When divorce court returns, Barbara testifies about her sex life with Brian.
Shortly before we would have sex or shortly after, he'd tell me I was useless, I was worthless, I was no good. I used the C word, used the B word.
But yet he wants you to go to bed with him.
Right. I was definitely good then, but not before or after.
And Brian admits to trying to ruin Barbara's finances since they're split.
Why should I keep the house and give it to her when I knew the marriage was over?
So you deliberately didn't pay the note?
Yes, ma'am.
If you would like to have the judge hear your case in divorce court, call us toll-free at 1-877-311-2222 or email us at www.divorcecourttv.com. Divorce Court is back in the case of Brian Goldfarb, who says his wife Barbara stopped giving him sex after she got a job as a phone sex operator.
So, in other words, you're not satisfied at home. Mrs.
Should I?
Goldfarb, any reason why you're enjoying sex more on the computer than with your husband?
Well, I wasn't having sex on the computer, but it was a little hard for me to have sex with Brian when shortly before we would have sex or shortly after, he'd tell me I was useless, I was worthless, I was no good, I used the C word, used the B word. You know, he just totally ripped me of my self-esteem. So he wasn't making you feel so good about yourself?
No,
not at all.
But yet he wants you to go to bed with him?
Right. I was definitely good then, but not before or after.
The woman is psycho. I mean...
Your Honor, our bills were never paid on time when we were together. We were evicted at, I can't tell you, countless of
Not
apartments.
with you making all this good money.
This is even before the phone sex started. This is what he got us into the phone sex. Every 3 to 4 months, we were evicted. I would give him the money from my paycheck. He owed his mom money. We owed his mother money.
Yeah.
Hold on,
my
she's
mother.
talking.
Rather than pay our rent.
You owe my mother $10,000. We
Goldfarb.
borrowed from her while we were in debt. Did she ever get paid? Yes, sir.
Rather than pay.
Hold on a second. Let Joe get his attention.
Yeah.
Rather than pay our rent or pay our electric, he would pay his mother or his brother or somebody else.
And why were you borrowing all of this money from his mother?
When he had moved in with me, he had come owing her a couple $1,000s anyway. We had borrowed money to get another car from her and to help pay us, to get us into a new apartment because he would not work.
During our marriage, we borrowed $8,000 during our marriage from my mother.
Okay, now what did you borrow
another
for?
Another $3,000 from my brother. Another $3,500 or no, another $3,000 for furniture.
So what are you guys doing with this money when you're working? You said you were always working. She said she was working and making good money.
Not working.
Every time I go to pay my mother back, we'd argue. So I very rarely got to pay her back. In fact, this year we were separated and I paid her back $2,000.
My point is, if you're working every day, as you claim you always worked, of course she says you were work a while and off a while.
Well,
and Mrs. Goldfarb, you say you worked all the time in telemarketing or either as a phone sex operator, or he says you're making money on the chat room from guys sending you money. Why is it that you're constantly in debt borrowing from other people?
Honestly, I don't know. The way he handled all the finances.
So it looks like both of you were just spending and didn't know what you were spending on and why.
Somewhat.
Are you gambling?
No.
You spending money on another man?
No.
Instead of
God
making
only
money
knows
off the
what
chat
she's
room,
doing.
are you spending money? So why is it that two adults working don't know what you're spending the money on, constantly getting evicted, and still borrowing all this money?
I can tell you, Your Honor, for the first time, being with Brian in almost 10 years total that we were together, since January, since I moved out, I'm paid my rent on time every month. My bills are paid.
I thought you were buying a house. What happened to the house you were buying?
The bank took it back.
You lost the house?
Yeah, I gave back to the bank.
This is just two cases. This is a case of two adult persons who have not learned how to handle your finances.
Why should I keep the house and give it to her when I knew the marriage was over?
So you deliberately didn't pay the note?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
And
the 2 cars I gave back to the bank
Maybe one reason why you could have kept the house because it would have provided a place for your son without having to continuously move.
My son ain't continuously moving. He lived in the same place.
She said you moved 6 times or 4 times during the marriage.
Every 3 to 4 months.
I'm talking about this. That just happened about a year and a half ago. We gave back the house. Okay, in a year and a half.
So what do you want from me?
We didn't have the house very long at all.
What I want is I want her to pay half the bills that I owe.
I'm not paying anything.
That's all I want.
Oh, I wouldn't be so quick to say that if I were you.
I'm not, Your Honor. He pays no child support. He doesn't spend any time with his son. He tells his son he's going to come to his football game, and he goes to a soccer game.
What do you want me to do? I was working.
I wouldn't be so quick to say that. What else needs to be paid? You want to change that, or you just adamant that I'm not paying anything?
I don't feel I owe anything.
Oh, that sounds a little better. Now you want to tell me why you don't feel you owe anything?
Because I have my son. I have the sole responsibility, caregiver, responsible, and any other kind of care that my son has to, whether he has to be taken to the doctors. If I call Brian and I say, I need you to take him to the doctors, because he was working in the evening and I was working during the day, he couldn't do it because he had to sleep.
When divorce court returns, the judge renders her verdict. And an update on the case of Rose Green versus Michael Harris.
She says you're a pimp, is that right?
Talk to me about what I'm doing today.
So you're not doing that today?
I ain't saying what I'm doing today.
Divorce Court will be back in session in a moment. Divorce Court is back and the verdict is in the case of Brian Goldfarb versus Barbara Goldfarb, who says they couldn't pay the bills even though she made a lot of money working as a phone sex operator.
We're back in the matter of Barbara Goldfarb and Brian Goldfarb. Unlike a lot of the cases that have come before me where the couples are young and 20 and 21 years old and don't know how to manage money, have never had the use of money, this is unusual because the two of you are not 21, you're not 25, and it seems to me that what was going on is that both of you were totally just mismanaging money. You're borrowing money and don't know why you're borrowing it, don't even know what you used it for. So whenever that's happening, that just means you're just spending, and you're spending out of control. When you don't know what you're spending money on and you don't know why you're borrowing it, you're spending too much, and you're not being conscious of your budget. And that's what's causing the problems here. It's not just the fact that she was working as a phone sex operator or the fact that he wasn't working. It's the fact that the two of you together have contributed to the downfall of your financial situation. because you both have not learned how to manage your money properly. In terms of the debts to his mother and brother, you haven't denied that the debts were there and that the money was borrowed. Just don't remember what you borrowed it for. But it was borrowed during the marriage, and therefore you're both responsible for it. And Mrs. Goldfarb, I know that you told me that you weren't going to pay anything, but that's not the law. I'm going to order you to pay half of the debts owing to Mr. Goldfarb's mother and his brother. Now, the fact that he's not seeing your son and he's not paying child support, those are two separate issues. Child support is handled in one manner, debts is handled in another manner. The child support issue was not before this court, otherwise I would make an order for child support. But I'm going to order you to mediation to discuss, and hopefully you can arrive at a decision concerning child support and child custody. Mr. Goldfarb, you do have an obligation to pay her child support every month. I don't care how many debts you're paying. I don't care how much money you owe your mother, and I don't care how much money you owe your brother. The child is innocent, and you owe her child support so she can help to take care of him before you pay your debts to anybody. And that includes your mother. In terms of the furniture obligation, since you have the furniture, Mrs. Goldfarb, I'm going to order that you pay the remaining balance due on it. You're the one who is in possession of the items that are being paid for. You have the use and you have the possession. So you need to pay the balance of that debt of $1,885. I'll warn you, Mr. Goldfarb, the account is in your name. If it's not paid, of course, it's your credit that's affected by it, and the judgment can only be entered against you by the creditor. But the fact that I've ordered your wife to pay it, you would have what we call an indemnity right against her. Maybe you can work out something to offset the $1,885 by her paying some other obligation.
You're not listening to me, Your Honor.
All right.
I'm through listening to both of you. What $3,500?
I gave you the note from Brian saying that he hasn't paid me anything.
Okay, you already have a contract and he owes you that and he has made a promise to pay you. It's a contractual obligation. If he doesn't pay you, sue him. That's the order of the court. All right?
All rise.
When divorce court returns, an update on the case of Rose Green versus Michael Harris.
I'm not your prostitute and I don't do as you tell me. Don't you dare accuse this court of any improper conduct.
Closed captioning for Divorce Court provided by. If you would like to have the judge hear your case in divorce court, call us toll-free at 1-877-311-2222 or email us at www.divorcecourttv.com. And now for an update on a previous case in divorce court. Rose Green said her 11-and-a-half-year marriage to Michael ended because she found the courage to walk away from him and his lifestyle.
I had my first child at 15.
You felt trapped?
Yes. I got up and found myself, and I got a job, and I found God, and I'm not living his life no more.
She says you're a pimp, is that right?
Talk to me about what I'm doing today.
So you're not doing that today?
I ain't saying what I'm doing today. I'm not no saint. The president made a mistake.
Everything positive that come in my life, Michael comes in and tears it down.
Come on, let's keep this real here.
I'm not your prostitute, and I don't do as you tell me.
Look like y'all in cahoots or something.
Don't you dare accuse this court of any improper conduct.
You the first woman I ever seen make him shut up.
Rose brought Michael to court because he took her car. The judge ordered Michael to return the vehicle. Rose's family is very happy that she's gotten her children away from Michael and his lifestyle. Michael said that going to court was a very educational experience, and he plans to attend college so he can change careers.
I don't feel that I owe Brian the money. I feel he owes me money because I have sole care of our son, and he pays nothing.
Let's go on with our life, and she needs to go on with hers. I'm going to go on with mine, and hopefully we both grew up by this.
I would not go back to him if he quit smoking. There was too much verbal abuse, physical abuse, and it was just awful. It was just a very unproductive marriage.
Will I ever get married again? I don't know. That's a hard question to ask. No one knows the future. We got married before more for my son's sake than anything else. I try to do the right thing by my son and raise him with a name and do what I think do the right thing as a father that I should be towards him. And that's not the right reasons to get married.